So let's get
Cool.
ended. Okay.
So you should be good.
Alright, there we go.
Thanks, Brennan. We're done.
Is it over your chat? Should just start. Yeah. Okay. Alright, we're gonna start. We're back. We're back.
Okay, hopefully Michelle and Emily join soon, but we're talking about being generous with what we're wealthy in. Okay, so yeah, people can give out of the relationship that you have with them, yeah. And if we know that relationship is an end in itself and not a means to an end, so you don't go to church so you can get more partners, yeah. But I will say this: if you never engage, or if you're never intentional in increasing your network, be intentional about increasing your network. Okay, be intentional about increasing your relational network. Because you eventually get to a point where you kind of exhaust people who maybe you think know what you do, or you tried, or family or friends, or something like that. So you've got to be intentional about increasing your network. What are some ways that you can do that?
But not two. Thank you.
Yeah, that is one way. Church. Somebody ringing? Is that a phone call somewhere?
Oh yeah, Emily's trying to add in or call us.
How do I don't see anything to accept her. We invited her into
Yeah, you can't accept the call without hanging up on this one.
Oh,
So she has to go into
but I
this one.
invited her into this broadcast.
Um,
Can you invite her into this one? Or let me see if I can see invite people.
I don't
Send
really know
it to
how.
invite. Let me see. I will problem solve this.
Oh wait. I can look for her. She's already in there.
I'm so annoyed.
Invitation posted. Okay, I sent her an invite to this one.
Okay. So you're in the top section.
There's no way to accept her.
Should we hang up and then re-invite everyone?
No.
Video call from Emily.
She's invited to this one. She just needs to connect to it.
Yeah. I need to exit. Did you take this? It's good to have. Is it a reverse?
It's recording, Robbie, so you could probably go for it.
Yeah, but I mean, shouldn't have maybe up to like.
I think she's coming in. Okay. Cool. So we're talking about. Here she is. Great. We're talking about increasing our network, and what are some of the ways that we can do that? Church was a really good one. The reason this is important is because we don't require people to go to church on staff. We encourage it. We got to think of and we go not for the purpose of, not for the purpose of what can I get out of this, but what can I contribute to what God's doing in this community. Okay? It sometimes surprises me that we have people on staff that complain about not having enough money, but they aren't intentional about increasing relationship. And where this is coming from is that we practice dependency on God for finances, yeah? But how does God usually and primarily prefer to give to us financially? Through relationship. Then we can make it easier for ourselves by engaging with new relationships and sowing into them. And it gives more choices for God to use in that process. And it also blesses the individual too. So even along the way, though, you're not going to church just so, okay, because we can sometimes have the mentality, oh, I'm in church all the time at Y1. We have Base Day, we have public meeting, we have this, so it's always like, It's like church all the time. So you may not go to church for the teaching, although I would encourage you, don't think that you can't get anything out of a sermon there either, because you probably will. But go to see how can I give and how can I contribute to be a part of this? You know, is there a team you can help out with? There's just getting to know people over time. And I've been at the same church now for 7 years in September. Wow, crazy. Been going to Grand for 7 years, so we got a plant for you. That's cool. You got to plant for a bit and be willing to sow because what you reap what you sow, right? So there's going to be a time where you have to sow and water the ground, plant the soil, seed into the soil, water the ground, and it's going to take a bit of time before you can harvest that. You see where I'm going? So you water the ground, water the crop of the relationship, and it'll be a bit of time before you can harvest it. But you've got to sow in. And if you water people, they're going to want to be a part of what God's doing in your life. Okay? I'm trying to kind of come at the same thing from a couple different angles, but this is one thing that has really served me. I have more Australian partners than I do U.S. partners. Okay? And that's been for years.
Wow.
I have more Australian partners than I do U.S. And that's come out of being very deliberate in this area that I've planted and sown into. It's part of dwelling in the land. Psalm 37:3, that to dwell in the land and do good that God has called you. Whether you're here for 6 months or 2 years, or students or staff, I'm still here, and I've been here almost 8 years now. Dwell where God has called you to be and really plant yourself, you know. And as you take root, your influence will go above and beyond it, and people will gather to your call, okay? And people want to be a part of what God's doing as you emphasize vision of what He's called you to, okay? So church is a great way to do that. It's not the only one. It's a great way. What are some other ways you can increase your network, increase relationship?
I think for the people in general, just around
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, shoot, Stevie's pretty good at this one. He started going to connecting with the cafe 189 up the street and the owner over there. Just not all the time, but maybe 2 or 3 times they connected a bit and shared about what I was doing, what I was doing here. And was just getting to know him and stuff, and the guy ended up giving like $1,000 to his visa permanent residence application. Like, you never know who God's going to do, but as you sow into, as you water relationship around you, and you're in a circle of influence, it'll be reciprocal. Will give financially. Okay, so you don't sow into everybody thinking, okay, $50, money, but you water in what you're wealthy in, and what you can be, who you are, and your own strengths and stuff, and some of the ways that they will reciprocate financially as you get what your needs are. Okay. In my experience, by far. Now, so general city. Christian word, I don't know what you call it, but yeah. Any other thoughts on this one?
When I went back home, I was like, because I wanted to be really intentional with my relationships when I went back home.
Yeah.
And I asked God, like, is there anyone you want me to mentor or just really get alongside? And He told me to mentor this girl who was sort of going to church, but like sort of a Christian, but not really. Anyway, I ended up like meeting with her regularly, and like God just like really transformed her. She's now the leader of like the ministry, and she's one of my main financial supporters.
Wow.
And at the time, I had not even considered that.
Yeah.
But like just investing in that relationship and obeying God, so much fruit came from that.
That's great. So what is God? And then the other side of the watering relationship. Another way that you can do this, increasing your network with where you are. I'll say maybe skill or hobby.
Oh yeah, like getting involved in this.
Okay. Scott and Tina have done this really well with Scott's skill and hobby in the area of film and video and photography. They'll sometimes take photos for friends from church or people with new babies or engagement photos for staff members and stuff, and they'll make a congregation member maybe decide. And he's also shot weddings in the States and here, and that's been so there's been some on the weekend projects and jobs where he's used that skill to bless people and then also save it again and through network and through the practical what he's offering. For me, one of the ways I've done this is I sing in the university choir. So I studied music at university before I came to Wyoming, and I still enjoy it. It's a very classical form and style, but a couple years ago, one of the ladies I went to church with, the relationship came in at the church. She was like, she found out that I sang in a couple church things just to help them out. Like, hey, you should join the university choir. I'm like, I don't think I have the schedule for that. Sounds awesome. I don't think I can. Finally, I went along to one of their concerts, and I was like, I figured I'd go along to a rehearsal, check it out. Checked it out, and they'd love to have me, and I prayed about it, and God, is this something I should consider? And I felt the release to do that as well. So every Tuesday I have rehearsals with the university choir, and out of that just connection and hobby of something I enjoy doing, it's tapped into a whole new network of people that I've never would have met. I mean, some of them are just uni students that are atheists, some of them are Christians from the cathedral up on the hill, stuff like that. But there's a couple of examples. One of those, over time, one time I was with a friend, they were like, okay, we have any graduations upcoming this year for the university. We need some national anthem singers. Does anyone want to do it? And I was like, I'll sing the national anthem. This is Australian national anthem. And I was like, do I need to audition or anything? Like, no, just sign up, you'll be fine. We just need 5 singers. The School of Business, the School of Law, the School of Education. And then there was like, yeah, I think you get paid like $25 or something. $50. And I was like, okay. And it was so I got from the university, and they're like, thanks for signing up for the Newcastle graduation ceremony. This is your time in Royal Park, and what time you need to be there on this day. And that's great. $150 to the Westfield Mall for your spending. So I couldn't be an employee, partly because of visa and partly because of so I couldn't be an employee, but they would just give me a gift card for my time. $150 to the mall. And so I was like, what? I would have done it for free. Like, and here I am getting paid $150. And so I did it, and I had 2 ceremonies, my first time. And I show up, I walk on stage, my little suit, sing the Australian national anthem in front of like a couple hundred people, and walk off, and 2 minutes later I get my envelope, $150 Westfield. Like, seriously, for 45 seconds of singing, I got quite a bit of good hourly wage. Pretty great. And I did that twice in 2 days, so I got $300 like that.
Wow.
Now, for the first couple of times, I thought I could only send it at the mall, but I found out that at the mall, you can go to US Post and transfer it to a Visa card, and a Visa card can go anywhere. So it's been pretty crazy. I've given thousands of dollars through that, not just always anthem singing, although there's been a couple thousand there. But you never know how engaging in a new network. I'll tell you 2 brief stories. I think I got time. Okay. A couple years ago, in 2012, I was getting ready to do the School of Communications, and it was also during the fundraiser. So the fundraiser was like June 22nd of that year. The choir was going on a tour to the States, to Cincinnati, to Boston, to New York, and to Bermuda, all those locations, and the university was paying for it. That's like an $8,000 trip. The university was paying for it, and I was like, I wanted to go. But on our end, we had the annual fundraiser, and the School of Communication was starting, which I was a student on. And in that second week, which I was going to be away, was Kenny Jackson, who was like International Dean of Communication from Wyoming. And I prayed about it and prayed about it. I was like, this is a free trip, but I don't know if I can miss out on the things that are going on with my primary focus, you know. And so at the end of the day, we tried to make it work, but I had to say no to that free trip. I had to say no to New York, Boston, and Bermuda. For singing, just to go sing. Like, that's it. It's like, oh my gosh. And so the thing that came out of that, and I got a call from Philip, the conductor, and said, hey, Robbie, I've got a call from the Newcastle campus down in the Central Coast, and because all the singers are going to be away, they need a national anthem singer, and we're going to be able to do it. But there's 5 ceremonies, and they also have a musical item in each ceremony, so the national anthem and a musical item for 5 ceremonies. Would you be able to do that for 2 days? I'm like, let me check and I'll get back to you. So I got released. Went down to the Arundel Coast in 2 days. So there's 5 ceremonies. That's 5 national anthems. And they wanted a musical item in each ceremony. So that's 10 items, and they gave me $150 per item.
Oh my gosh.
$1,500 in 2 days by singing, which in the total time that I sang, I maybe sang with the national anthems and all music items, maybe 15 minutes, maybe of work. And in the meantime, like when I wasn't singing, I was sitting down in the VIP room, having catered lunch and coffee and biscuits and tea, really roughing it. I cannot tell you, like, and there, I never thought, like, I think that was a really cool way that God kind of redeemed saying no to a free trip to the States. But man, how cool is that? That's engaging in a network and kind of this. And then a month ago, I don't know if you guys knew this, but the University of Newcastle Choir got invited to Geneva to sing at the United Nations in early July of this year. And for months and months, I didn't think I was able to go. I was like, oh, it sounds awesome. How much is it? 4,000? There's no way. That's like 6 days for 4,000. I've put enough outreaches to know that that's a terrible deal. I'm like, that's a terrible deal. But whatever. And the university, they paid some stuff they couldn't pay for everybody to go. I was like, okay, well, it sounds awesome. Hope you guys have a great time. But then we got to like May, and it looked like, okay, the university was going to give a couple thousand per person. So the cost came to about $2,000. I was like, sounds awesome. Have fun. Still think I'm going to go. And it was like the first week of July this year. And then in the first week of June, I got a call from Philippa, who's in the choir with me. Tim and Zach, mom, we sing together, and she's one of the ministers. She calls me and she says, hey, Robbie, we've rearranged some funding and talked to the festival and the university, and they're willing to give you another $1,700. We'd really like you to go. And I'm like, okay. And she says, so all you need to do is raise $500, and that would cover the rest of your flight and the ground, like food and stuff like that while you're in Geneva. I was like, okay, leave it with me. I'll talk to Dave and Ashley and I'll pray about it. And I didn't even talk to, this was like Tuesday afternoon. I didn't even have to talk to Dave yet. I hadn't talked to Ashley. I started talking to Ashley. And I wasn't able to make rehearsal that night on Tuesday night. And I get a text after rehearsal. She says, hey, Robbie, I shared, I was talking to one of the choir members about kind of where you were at and how close you were. And they'd like to make an anonymous donation of $1,000 to get you to go. And we would love for you to go. And I'm like, okay. So let me double check this. So that's $1,000 in addition to where I was at already. So I need to cover the $2,200 flight, and that would cover my ground fees, like food and travel expenses. And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, okay. So I'm used to having to exercise faith energy to see financial outcomes. I'm used to that, okay? Praying, what's God saying, interceding. I didn't have to do anything to sign up to my life. I really had to do very little, and I'm going to Europe for free. I went to Europe for free to sing at the United Nations. We sang in France. We sang in Switzerland. We got to see around the city, and I'm like, how did I get here? Like, man, I'm like, only in God would I get paid a free trip to the United Nations to sing as a missionary. I'm like blown away by this. And so you never know how, what I'm saying is increasing your network. Those opportunities came out of increasing the network. That $1,500 went to redoing our car that year, 2012. Okay? Because we went to the post office and got that $1,500 put on the credit card, our Visa card, debit card. And it went toward a very practical need that we needed. So you never know how doing this. Now, we don't have staff get jobs. That's a separate thing, part-time jobs and stuff like that, because it interferes with primary call. Okay? Because you got to imagine, it's very hard. You can't really get community to work and rosters to work if half your staff have part-time shifts at McDonald's and at Jack's and at the mall. Because when push comes to shove, and we have this base event that all staff are need to be at. Oh shoot, I have a shift at work. Who wins? You do that? So it has to do with primary call. You can do projects along the way as long as you're visa allows. You can do different projects and stuff in the city as long as your visa allows. But it has to do with who wins. Okay. If push comes to shove. Those are some thoughts there. But increasing your network, this will take you a long way to be really deliberate with this. Any questions so far? I got heaps more to cover, so we're going to keep going. But I want to pause along the way. How are we doing?
Well, for me, I don't have a church back home. My parents go to the church, but for the last year, I didn't go to the church because I was working every Sunday and stuff. And for me, culturally, Dutch people don't ask for money. Because I don't know if you've heard saying, let's go Dutch, like for when you go out.
Yep.
Well, I'm Dutch. So Dutch people don't talk about money, don't ask money, they just don't do that. So how would you advise me to ask money to Dutch people.
Sure. There will be some cultural norms that you kind of have to ask God's wisdom over. So it may be different what you do culturally versus what you might do in different places. But as a general society in the West, it may be more emphasized in your country, but it's not unusual to the West in general. There's a couple things you usually don't talk about: money, politics, and religion. As in general, money, politics, religion. It means you can't talk about those things. It just means there's a bit more of a social faux pas around them. Okay? Yeah? But do what God's leading you to do, and don't walk in too much of a cultural fear of man if God's leading you to do it. And sometimes that you may, as you're stepping out in God, it may bring a momentary offense. But if you have faith that God's told me to speak to this person, and relationship will cover the tension. The relationship with the individual will cover the tension. If you sow into the person, even if you feel a bit awkward, or you trip up on your words, or you get the moment wrong, or something like that, if there's any moments of tension, relationship will cover that and carry it through. Okay, so that's why you want to have relationship as the foundation, and that's what you want along the way.
Hey, Robbie.
Yes.
When you're asking someone, like if I'm like gonna approach you and say, "Hey, Robbie, I was wanting to know if you want to financially support me in missions." Do you basically ask for them to? Do you wait for their immediate response? Do you let them know, like, if you want to pray about it, or do you just like?
Totally.
What
That's
do you
good.
normally follow up with?
Yeah, great.
How do you do that?
We're going to cover that next. Just like the whole process of the appeal and how do you actually approach people.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what medium of communication you use, I'll give you a bit of some guidelines around that.
Okay.
And then to follow up just with Yuri, do what God's saying, but it's going to soften the soil of the relationship if you water all the ground first. So if you haven't talked to the person in 3 years, and then the first point of communication is you're asking them about money, it's not going to go as well versus if you water and kind of connect with them on Facebook or Skype or whatever. Hey, how's it going? Oh, you got a job? Like, oh, this is what I'm doing now. And just catch up with them, bring them up to speed, on what's happening, And maybe that's conversation one. And then maybe next month you're catching up again, and you're getting to encourage them. Hey, is there anybody who can pray for you right now? Or what are we wealthy in? Faith and spirit. So I've said this so many times. I feel like a broken record because I don't know who hears and who doesn't. One of the most generous things I have found that we can do for people is why we hear God for them. One of the most generous things I can do for somebody is to hear God for them. Okay? I found that fruitfulness of this in evangelism, in the church, in YWAM, in Faith and Finances, like when I stop and hear God for them, I cannot tell you how quickly that enriches the relationship and the friendship, okay? And when I combine that with counter-trend opportunities, one of the ways that I accelerate friendship and relationship, now I don't do this this is just what I do, and I found it to be fruitful, but I'm not saying this is a formula we're dealing with. The value is sowing into relationship. And one of the ways that I do that, knowing trends, knowing effective communication, and knowing what I'm wealthy in, what I do is I hear God for somebody, I hand write a card and a letter, and I write that word in it, and then I give it to them at church. That will accelerate the friendship at a pace that is so much faster than 4 or 5 times of going out to Gloria Jean's and sitting over a coffee and trying to kind of like force something, okay? It just injects a lot of favor into the relationship, okay? And that's maybe after 2 brief conversations at church, or maybe they're being interested in what you're doing, and you being genuinely interested in who they are and what they do, and what do they do at work, and what do you like to do, okay? You've got to sow in, get to know them, and then also just water the friendship. So maybe it might be a period or a season or 2 of watering people back home, watering relationships and friendships from work or family or friends. And then who knows, and in the future you can share about what you're doing and emphasizing here though, I'd encourage you've got to start somewhere, and there will be a time where you're waiting for the crop to take roots and actually start growing. But you've got to plant, and I encourage you, again, we don't require a church, but we're looking at values here. The people that do this well have seen so much quicker breakthrough and long-term breakthroughs than those that come to it. Even he really enjoys helping out, and he goes to Hillsong, and he's out in the production team and does sound every week. And he's a fairly new staff. He's only been on staff like a year, yeah. And when he's had trouble, he's not super confident yet in approaching people face to face and stuff. And as I've worked with him many times and stuff over the last 6 months to 9 months, he's growing and growing in his understanding and all that. But because he's been so willing, deliberate, and servant-hearted with his church group, he's served them and gone and done sound for their youth nights and done sound for Sunday mornings. They are so favorable towards him. Like he barely has to do an appeal and he sees money come in. Like he barely has to do an appeal and money comes in because people are they really like him because he's so such a blessing, such a soft-hearted guy. Okay, he's very willing and very just and I told him that multiple times. He's in such a better position for somebody that's struggling with finances than the person that is sitting in the room every week and never leaves the house and never really engages, and is walking in fear and walking in discouragement, and they're wondering why, I'm not getting any money. Well, are you sowing into people? Are you sowing into the city? Even the fear stuff is an internal thing, and I'm like, man, all you gotta do is collect this, and as you engage with this, you're gonna get hundreds of dollars in a month, like more per month, a very short amount of time because the relationship's already there. The long part for the newer staff takes building a relationship, that takes watering, which takes time. So you just got to be deliberate and committed to sowing and watering relationships, and back home and back wherever you're from, but it'll happen. Okay. Okay. Now we're going to get to practical approaching with what Michelle's saying and what she's asking. So just to summarize a bit of where we're at. What are we wealthy in? Emphasize relationship. Don't look at good ideas. Look at God ideas. Good ideas will keep you efficient. God ideas will keep you effective. Okay. Good ideas. What are good ideas? Oh, I need money. I need to write a newsletter. That's our good idea. Oh, I need money. I should make a Facebook status. Oh, I need money. I'll make a tweet about how I need money for outreach. Aren't bad, but let God tell you how to raise money. Don't do it just because you think that's what you need to do and that's what you're comfortable with. You'll save a lot of time, a lot of grief, a lot of stress, and sometimes if you rely on good ideas, you can abort the opportunity. Aborting the opportunity is when you start a process and it dies because it wasn't harvested in the right time or it's ended prematurely. Okay, you see that language? What that can look like if you use a good idea and approach somebody that's not ready for that, they can take offense and not give it to you, and it can kind of temporarily wound the relationship and friendship. But if you use God's idea and God's wisdom about who to approach and do it relationally, even the people that you think have a long way to grow in your friendship with, they can harvest very quickly because you obey God. You see that? Okay. Now hear me, because even God has led me to approach some of my siblings who I thought, in my natural understanding, I had a lot of room to grow. I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, man, my older sister, 50 years, you guys hear that feedback?
So my loud. My sister's making popcorn. That might be it. Probably. I know, it's like that shot. So she like making it like the old-fashioned way. That's why I thought.
Wow. What is happening?
Sorry, I shouldn't be where I am, but I am.
That's cool.
That's why I moved it back.
So sometimes God's told me to approach people that I feel like there's room to grow in the natural. Okay? But obedience is the determiner of success. Obedience is the currency of success. Okay? In the kingdom, obedience is the currency of success. Do what God is saying, not what you think you should do. Even when God tells you to do a social media campaign and you prefer phone calls like me, do what God's saying. But if all things being equal, God may tell you to approach different individuals, but again, do what's comfortable to them and what's effective in a relationship, not what you're comfortable with, because then you could shortchange yourself if you do a poor communication medium, even though you got the right person. You see that? Okay. Yep. Now with my sister, and I wanted to approach her, I did it, and it wasn't easy, and I think there's room to grow, but I was obedient to what God told me to do. And she would ask hard questions. She'd be like, well, I don't agree that you should ask people for money. And I try to explain to her about the values of YWAM and how God's given us these values. And when I pray and I listen to God about what He wants me to do and I do what He's wanting me to do, her response to that was, well, there's a place who say that they hear voices. There's a place for people that say they hear voices. Awesome. So, great. Thanks, Stephanie. And that relationship has come a long way. And at first it was a bit hard and rocky, but that has shifted over time. That was in the first couple of years, but now, I mean, even last year for our car campaign, that same sister gave us $1,000. Okay? You know, only in a hometown is a prophet without honor. Remember Jesus saying that? It has to do with, and you'll experience some of this in finances, because people know you for who you were, not for who you are. They know you pre-DTS, not post-DTS transformation sometimes. And so sometimes your family and friends will be the ones that take the longest to shift because they know you for who you were. But if you stay the course, stay determined on what God's called you to do and center in the position of God's will, that will shift over time. My siblings are both financial partners of mine, and one of them is not even a Christian. How the heck does that work? Okay? Mm-hmm. She says, I don't believe in what you do, but I believe in you and you're my brother, so here's $1,000 a year. Okay. And I had to pray about that initially, but God spoke to me out of Philippians 1. And he said, you know, there's a passage where Paul says, you know, some of you say that some teachers preach the gospel and Jesus out of their own selfish motivation and reputation. And I preach it out of free will and for the sake of the gospel. But he says, what does it matter? So regardless of selfish motivation or genuine concern, what does it matter but that Christ is preached? And God said, you know, whether an atheist doesn't believe in you and doesn't agree with what you do, or just because you're a brother, what does it matter but the kingdom is being advanced? And so I'm like, okay. Mm-hmm. So she's a part for whatever her motivation is. And she's coming in along with it too. Cool. Now approaching people. I'm going to give you a couple of the guidelines. There's going to be 3 things you want to do in approaching people. No matter what medium you choose, whether it's Skype, face-to-face, whatever the process is, you want to do a couple things that are going to help serve you. You want to, I'll call it prep. You do the prep, the appeal, and then the follow-up. Prep, appeal, and follow-up. 3 separate things. Follow-up is very important. Very important. What you do, because you can get the appeal really well, and you had this amazing vision casting time, and you invited them into prayer, and they were super keen, and they seemed so favorable in the moment. And you leave that time feeling super encouraged because they seemed like they wanted to partner with you, and you gave them all the information and details, and man, that was great. And then you hug each other and you say goodbye, and then you wake up the next day excited to see that money start rolling in, and a week goes by and you haven't heard anything. And then 2 weeks goes by and you haven't heard anything. And 3 weeks goes by and you're like, okay, they seemed like they were wanting to give, but now you're not sure if should you call them? Do they want to give? Maybe they want to, but they don't know how. Maybe they don't want to and they don't want, maybe it would be awkward if I called them. Maybe they wanted to, but they lost my piece of paper. Like, it only causes vagueness if you don't do follow-up well. Okay, you can eliminate that uncertainty if you do this deliberately. Okay, it keeps it from being vague. Now, with prep, some of the key things there is, why would it be important to set it up, to set up the conversation for an appeal? Why would it be important? Yeah, it could make it a bit more real, yeah. But why is it important? What are we talking? What's in the prep?
Arranging a time.
Arranging a time. Yeah. So arranging a time to actually meet over coffee or a dessert night at your house or something like that. You're arranging a time. What else are you doing?
Praying to God.
Yeah, so that would be even almost before.
Right.
So this is actually with the individual. So praying before, we're assuming that we've already done what is God saying, and He's told you to talk to this person, your Aunt Betty. And okay, now I'm going to talk to Aunt Betty, and you're setting up the time. What else is important in the prep?
Work out how you're going to say it.
So that would be more for you in the appeal. How are you going to say it in the appeal? We'll talk about that. What else would you want to talk about in the prep?
Like selling and like asking how we're going.
Yeah, could be. That would be even part of the lead up to the whole thing of approaching or whatever.
Isn't it the relational stuff?
Not quite. Not quite. Separate thing. It's a very practical thing. In the prep, you want to talk about money at some point. You're wanting to connect with them so that you can share about what you do in missions, and you would like to share about some of your financial and prayer needs and see if they'd be open to be a part of it. Why is that important in this step?
Because they know from the start what your purpose behind meetings, so that that you feel like that you're not just, I don't know, using them.
Yes. If you don't do that, and you think that you're catching up for coffee about monthly partnership, what do they think you're catching up about?
Hang out.
Just to hang out. And then if you go to hang out for coffee and you pull out your little response card and your little Faith and Finances book, what does that communicate? Okay? You see why?
In an awkward position.
Yeah, it's a bit deceptive. It makes it seem like, oh, you didn't really want to hang out with me. You just wanted to talk about money. Oh, you had ulterior motives. It's a bit deceptive, a bit manipulative. Okay? If you talk about this first, they know going into it. Okay? They know. So that's why it's really important. So you're setting up the time and saying, hey, I was wondering when we hang out, if it's okay if I share about you what I do with YOM and what I do in the city. And if it's okay if I share about some of my prayer and financial needs in season and see if you'd be willing to be a part of it. Is that okay to talk about? So you're not asking them to partner with you. You're getting their permission to talk about money when you meet up. Got it? Getting their permission to talk about money. Is that okay to talk about when we hang out? Yeah, sure. No worries. Every time I've asked that somebody, yeah, sure, no worries. They've said yes. I haven't had a single person ever say no. I'm not saying I never will. I've never had somebody, as I've gotten their permission to talk about those needs and asking if it was okay. So that's prep. This is effective appeal. Now, why don't we practice that? Let's practice that a moment. So what you're going to do is, whether it's on the phone or face-to-face, you can continue on the phone or Skype or whatever, but you're getting permission with the individual to talk about money. What I say and what I do is, I've done this a couple different ways. I've set up a time to hang out with him, and then before we actually meet, so I'll connect with him at church, hey, let's catch up over a meal or whatever, and then before I go over to their house at dinner, in between those couple days, I'll call them and say, hey, we're looking forward to Thursday night, wondering if when we hang out and just catch up and stuff, if it's okay if I share with you some of the financial and prayer needs that I have in season and what's kind of coming up in ministry. Is it okay if we talk about that on Thursday when we hang out and see if you'd be open to look at possible engagement? Would it be okay to talk about that? Yeah, sure. So I say something like that. Okay? If it's face-to-face, you can do the same thing. Hey, I was wondering when we catch up for coffee, if it'd be okay if I can share with you some of my financial and prayer needs in season with what I do in ministry and why I'm here, and see if you'd be open to, we can chat about that and see if you'd be open to your possible involvement or partnership in those areas. Would that be okay to talk about? Okay. So let's take 2 minutes and practice that with the person next to you. For online people, maybe it's going to be a bit tricky. Maybe just mute your microphone and practice to yourself. That's what you can do. And hey, let me tell you something. The first time you do some of this stuff, make the appeal, prep, stuff like that, it's going to feel a bit clunky. The first time you start doing it, first couple times, the first time I actually used the visual aid and sat with somebody in person, was going through my little flip book like 4 or 5 years ago, I was a bit like, money, part missions, partnership, God, Jesus, me, please give up money. Okay, it was a bit awkward, but the more you do it, the more natural it becomes, and it's not that daunting. After the first time and a half, I was like, oh, okay, I can do this. This is okay. And people aren't hating me, and I'm still okay, and they actually are partnering with me, and I'm actually getting $100 a month more, and I'm actually getting $50 a month more. Like, wow, there is a God, yeah! Okay, like it's totally possible. So even as you start doing this, you might feel like, oh, am I a salesman, or am I kind of, no, okay, don't get into that stuff, okay? So let's have it go, and then we'll start going through it, and we'll talk about appeal.
Hey, Robbie, I have one quick question.
Yeah.
So you first set up a date just to meet up, and then before the coffee date, you follow up and just buffer them on.
You can do that. That's what I tended to do. But it's not the only. You can do that you can do in the same step when you're setting up the coffee date. Say, because you can also say, hey, I was wondering if you'd be open to hang out for coffee sometime, that I can share with you more about what I do and what I do in missions and some of the financial and prayer needs I have in season, and seeing if you'd be willing to be a part of it. Is that okay to chat about sometime if we hang out over coffee and I can share about some of that stuff? So you can do that in the same step. I have, the other thing is what I've tended to do. I'm not saying it's the only way, and if you feel like that's not you or what you prefer, that's sweet. But
what's the reason behind doing it in 2 different things?
Kind of separate. I find that it separates. Like, I do genuinely want to just hang out with them. Like, I do want to hang out. Let's go for coffee. Hang out for a meal, stuff like that. Looking forward to hanging out with you. And then I'll follow to say, hey, I'm looking forward to hanging out on Thursday while we're there. Just wondering at some point if it's okay if I share with you a bit more about the season that Ashley and I are in, and kind of some of the needs that we have upcoming in ministry, and if it's okay if we chat about that, and if you'd be open to look at potential involvement. Is that okay? Cool. So that's what I do. It's not the only way. There's a couple different ways. Even, I'll tell you the other one I do sometimes now. Now, I have enough relationship with some of my partners that when I have a need, like the season that I'm in, and I need $700 for my car next week, stuff like that. I'll stop and Ashley and I'll pray and say, okay, God, who do you want us to talk to? And he'll give us a name or permission or whatever to talk to somebody. And I'll call them up, and I just do it all over the phone. And I'll say, hey, Mark, it's really good to say, hey, I was just wondering, I was calling to see, Ashley and I have our upcoming car payment registration and insurance. I'm just wondering if it's, right now, so far we've raised $400, and we still need an outstanding. We have about $700 outstanding. Just wondering if you'd be open for you and Liz to pray about potential partnership for a portion of that, or what you're able to contribute. Would you be open to pray about that? Yeah, no worries. We'll see what we can do. We'll get back to you in a couple days. Great. We'll leave it with you, and I'll call you, and maybe on Monday, if that works, and leave it with you for a couple days and see what you've had a chance to pray and decide. Cool. Awesome talking to you, Mark. Looking forward to chat with you on Monday. Seriously, that's like faith and finances for me 60% of the time these days. And then I'll call them on Monday. Hey, we chat about it. We can do $250 or $500, whatever it is. So you can, once you have enough relationship, you can just do it all very quickly. So when you start getting to where you do appeal and follow up in the same conversation. But as you're getting started and as you're sitting down face to face, and it's a newer relationship or it's something you've never talked about finances before. Now I do that with repeated partners, like they're annually, they'll give monthly and to special one-time needs. If it's a new partner, definitely do prep. Okay. So yeah, there's not a one-size-fits-all, Michelle. It's just that I'm sharing out what I've done over the years and what I've tended to do.
That's really, really good.
So take a minute and practice, or I don't know if you can practice with each other and just mute our microphone or something, but I'll give you guys 3 minutes. Let's see if you can have a chance to do both people, because I want to cover the appeal as well. Go.
Okay. Do you guys want to practice together, Emily
Sure.
and Catherine?
Yeah.
Let's see if I can just mute the microphone.
Okay. Okay. Can you guys?
I think they're muted, but
Yeah. Sweet. All right.
Turn volume. Okay.
I'll just turn our sound down so you guys can do it. I can hear you.
Okay.
Where are you living now?
That's right.
Oh, you went to Australia. Oh,
There's how though. Oh, we can mute them. Okay. Wait. Yeah. You click on them. Okay, I muted them. Can I hear you guys still? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Perfect.
So should we pretend like we meet someone at church there, or are you like doing it from home?
How about we talk about our home relationships, just because we're not there yet, and that way this is what we can implement right now.
Okay.
That's good.
Okay. So.
Okay, I'll go. I'll just
Okay.
fly it off the wind.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Were you gonna go?
No, I have nothing to say. I don't know.
Okay.
To inspire me.
All right, sweet. Hey, Emily and Catherine, how are you guys doing?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Good. Thanks for meeting with me for coffee, and it means a lot that we can hang out and that you made time. Yeah, I just want to like catch up and just share with you guys what I'm doing in Australia, doing missions work and leading our outreaches, and yeah, I'd just like to tell you a little bit about what we're doing and see if you'd like to, we'd like to support that, and yeah, I'd just like to see if you guys would be open about praying and asking God if you'd like to financially support that, and it's not the best way, but
good. No, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
You're doing well.
I think I just want to practice one more time to be more concise, so it's
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
Okay, sweet. Okay, Emily and Catherine, thanks guys for meeting for me with coffee. And yeah, basically I just wanted to get together and share a little bit about what God's going to be doing through me and leading outreaches and doing ministry in Australia. And I wanted to see if you guys would pray and be open about asking God about financially and prayerfully supporting me. I'm looking for some monthly donors, and I just have this little flip card to show you guys. Is that cool?
Yeah.
Cool.
Good job. That was good.
Sweet.
Well, very nice.
Okay. Is that cool? Because then you just like nod like yes.
Yes, because then it's like what he was saying. He hasn't met a lot of people that didn't want to, and if you let them know in advance, like, hey, we're going to meet for coffee, and talk. Would you want to meet for coffee, and I can tell you about like what I've been doing, or do you have to say right away, like, hey, if you want to meet for coffee, I want to talk about if you could support me. Like, I don't. How do you say that?
Yeah, I guess if you just go for it.
I know, like, for me, I did that actually once, and I think it was cool because I was just like, hey, like, I think it was really cool, like, being intentional with people about, like, all my stories from GTS. So then just being like, hey, like, yeah, so I'm starting a next journey, like, back to YWAM to do staff, and, like, I'd love to share with you, like, what God's speaking to me about it and all this stuff. And then through that be like, just for prayer and financial support and emotion and all these things.
Okay. We're going to get ready to get started. How'd you guys go?
Good, Michelle. You did a great job.
Like I said, the more you'll come into it. Here's a couple key points on this, just to summarize this first step. On the prep side, so mention money. The reason I'm calling is I was wondering if it'd be okay if when we catch up and chat, if it'd be okay to share about some money, blah, blah, blah. So mention money. Number 2, the goal is to meet them, not ask them yet. So you're not asking them, you're just asking their permission. It's okay to talk about them. The goal is to meet them, not ask them yet. So pray. I always pray before these calls. Lord, I just pray that this would be stepping out of faith and just asking for His favor and His connection, backing all that stuff. Especially if you're doing what He's leading you. You're stepping out of obedience anyway. Practice. That's what we're doing. Practice with your roommate. Practice with your friend. Practice to yourself. Kind of verbalize. It's the same as like when you public speak or whatever. You kind of do it because then as you speak it out loud, you start finding, oh, that was a bit of an awkward transition, or that didn't quite sound right. Or ask somebody, and I'll do it with you, and I'll say, okay, say that part again because that didn't link well. Okay? And we can go back and forth on that. You can be honest with them. You can say, hey, this is kind of newer for me. I'm just getting started in this whole faith and finances thing, but I don't know if you knew that. But I want to, what am I trying to say? You can say, sorry, this is getting a bit newer for me. I'm still learning this faith and finances thing, but wondering if it'd be okay if we can chat about some of my upcoming needs in the season if you want to be a part of it. So you can say it. I've never really done this before, but so that's part of that, being honest. Number 5, use notes if it's going to help you on the phone, just to kind of give you clarity and kind of if you're feeling anxious or the heartbeat's pumping, that'll help you out. Okay, number 2, we got to keep moving. Appeal. This is where, So this is actually when you sit down. A couple points. Use visuals if you can. So visuals can be video, flip books, presentation, response card, photos. Just using visual communication in general. It's going to keep it dynamic. It's going to keep it a bit more easier to follow and things like that. Be yourself. So don't have a monologue. You're not reading off a paper. Okay. You want to don't just sit there and, hello, thank you for meeting with me. I was wondering if you would like to be a part of Youth with a Mission. I'm now in this organization, and we have a practice dependency on God for finances. With practice dependency on God for finances, we rely on relationship from friends, family, and churches to be a part of our partnership groups. Okay, so you see that? Don't do that. No. Bad. Okay.
The classic look up when you like
finances. So I notice you have a new car out front. Nice. Okay. So one of the things you want to practice is transitions. You want to get to the point eventually. The reason you want to get to the point, what we can kind of do all this stuff right, and then we kind of skirt around what we're actually saying. Okay, hear me in this. People will tend to do what you ask them to do. Okay, now let me show you an example of what we can do if we don't get to the point. We can kind of go through all our little process, and this is what YWAM's about, this is what I'm doing in missions, this is my upcoming season in staffing DTS and outreach. And then we can kind of transition and say something like, so I don't know if you knew, but nobody in YWAM actually gets paid. And we're all full-time missionary volunteers. And we rely on others, people, friends, family, and churches for financial partnership. And so what I was wondering is, maybe if you wanted to, you don't have to, but if you wanted to maybe think about it, it would be really great if you would maybe want to do partner with me in prayer or in maybe finances, but you don't really. But it would be really helpful for finances, but maybe you don't have to if you don't want to. But just think about it, and I'll. Oh my gosh! Just say it, okay? We can take 10 minutes to say something that should only take 30 seconds, okay? And it's really, it's only as awkward as you make it awkward, okay? People are going to pick up. If you're feeling awkward, they're going to feel awkward. If you're not feeling awkward, they're going to be normal and relaxed too. So you want to transition that. And the other thing is this. Remember I said people generally will tend to do what you ask them to do. if you're afraid to talk about monthly partnership, and so you talk about prayer and one-off donations, they're going to hear that first. So start with what you really need, what you want the most. Okay? This is what I will tend to say. I'll go over my whole thing in a second. But what I say is, well, I'll say something like, well, every little bit helps. What Ashley and I are really in a season of is developing a consistent budget month to month. So every contribution and point of generosity is a help, but we're really hoping for smaller monthly amounts that are going to be appropriate and possible for you guys over time, if that's something you can consider. But do what's possible for you if you guys pray about it, and yeah, really appreciate you guys considering this. Okay? So you push monthly. Monthly is going to be the hardest and the most important you want to do. Prayer is very important as well, but you're wanting to build a base of that over time, okay? You're going to be different seasons to different needs. I'm not minimizing the importance of prayer, but you're also wanting to get financial partners too, okay? Now, if you say prayer and your outreach or whatever, outreach is going to be important too, but outreach, again, do what God's leading you to do, but if you push outreach, you're going to get through that season of needing that 4,000 for outreach, but then you don't have monthly partners at the end, okay? And monthly partners are the fishing lines. You want to go after your monthly partners with the fishing lines one-on-one, and for outreaches, use more of a fishing net. I'm using some general terms. You got to do what God's leading you to do. Outreaches are better for campaign, social media, calling individuals, but kind of it's a broader group that you can approach. Monthly partners are very specific and they take time. So you don't want to try to do this out of crisis, because if you're in a crisis and all of a sudden you're trying to raise $3,000 for staff debt, $1,000 for visa, and X amount for whatever else, that puts that pressure of trying to get monthly partners a bit harder, because then it takes a long time to see that come in. So, but all things being equal, always push monthly partners, and then let them, because some people, even if you push monthly and say, hey, whatever's possible, is it possible and appropriate for you guys? Would you pray and consider it? And thank you so much for chatting about it. Okay, so I call them up a couple days later and say, hey, just following from a conversation the other day. It was awesome catching up with you guys. It's good to hear about Billy and skate park and stuff. Can't wait to see them on the scooter, whatever. Talk about who they are. And I want to see you and Tracy had a chance to talk about it and pray about it and see what you've decided to do. Yeah, we chatted about it. We can't do monthly right now, but we're able to give $500. That's okay. Yeah, that's a huge help. Thank you so much for your generosity. Thanks for it's just been a huge blessing, and that's going to be a huge help towards my outreach and whatever. You know, people are going to slide into what they want to do. Okay.
Hey,
so,
hey, Robbie.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say if you're talking to a person in person or on the phone, they're like, yeah, I want to do it, and they're game to like just do it then. Do you just have prayer card that information and just send them off to do it when they get home, or do you help them do it with you right there?
I'd say it depends on what they're communicating. If they're like, yeah, let's do it. And if are you saying they're in person with you or on the phone? Either?
I guess I was saying in person, but if they were on the phone.
Yeah,
I was just saying like
when I go on the phone or whatever, if I'm on the follow-up conversation and they're keen and they want to do $50 a month or whatever, I'll say, awesome, that's such a huge help. How would you like to do it? Here's some different options. Direct deposit check. If it's a U.S. thing, is tax deductibility something that you would like, or is that important to you? And give them those details. Then I'll text them my bank details. Or what I'll do is I'll text you right now, and so that way you can just do it. So I'll text them with all the information, and maybe I'll follow up, and later that night I'll say, hey, did you have a chance to get that text? I sent it to you earlier. Did all that come through okay? And then usually if they're keen, then it's not an awkward thing. They're like, yeah, I got it, put it in, I started it, should come in next week, whatever. Or if it's in person and they're communicating, they want to do it right then, I would probably go through, probably know your BSB and bank account, so if they want to do direct deposit in person, or you can show them some different ways. If you have a PayPal, that you can do monthly, we have probably 5 or 6 partners that do monthly PayPal transfers into our account, and that PayPal gets transferred into our U.S. account. So the PayPal is a pretty reliable way to do it too.
Okay. And I have one more. Oh.
Yep. Go ahead.
Okay, as far as like monthly supporters go, you said that there's an option for it to be reoccurring. Is that something that you can set up through your own bank to make it reoccurring, or do they just have to manually?
They would do that themselves. Usually in transfers it says, okay, is this only once or every month or every fortnight or whatever.
Okay.
They usually will, that's on their end.
Okay.
Yep. Okay,
Sweet.
I'm running a little bit low on time, so let me kind of bridge some of this stuff. Okay, when I sit down with them, and then number 5, emphasize vision and faith.
Are you guys getting on the bullet points?
Okay, so the bullet points here are use visuals, no monologue, work on your transitions, which I'm getting into next. Get to the point, so ask them what you're trying to ask them. Emphasize vision and faith, and emphasize partnership. Okay, so what I'll tend to do is it depends on who I'm talking to, because sometimes you'll talk to people that have no idea what YWAM is. So you start with a broad funnel of YWAM, and then you go a bit more into YWAM Newcastle. And then from there, I go into me. What do I do in the ministry? I develop staffing BTSs, so I'm discipling people on a regular basis, and we have different speakers that come in every week, and I'm going to be facilitating small groups and meeting one-on-ones and discipling different people from around the world. And then later this year, I'm going to lead an outreach team to a country and lead a whole team of missionaries as we do community development and sharing about Jesus along the way. It's going to be awesome. Okay, so you tell about you see this gradual progression of what is YWAM, what is YWAM Newcastle, and then what am I involved in that, and then you transition into finances. Okay, and then you kind of go to direct people. Okay, let me model this for you real quick. Now, I'm assuming that, because other times you're going to meet people that they know YWAM. They know YWAM, you're not the first YWAMer they've partnered with, okay? So you don't start with YWAM and YWAM Newcastle, you start with you. So I know you know a bit about YWAM already, but I'm going to tell you a bit about what ministry I'm a part of and what I'm really passionate about, what I feel God's put on my heart to really do in the kingdom, okay? So you start with yourself, you emphasize vision and partnership, and yeah, People respond more to faith than need, okay? People respond more to faith than to need. If you try to make it about need, you're going to lose. If you put your picture next to the picture of the starving African child, who wins? The African child. Don't make it about need. If you make it about need, what does that sound like? Oh, I'm just needing more financial partners right now because I don't have enough money for toothpaste, and I don't have enough money to go out with my friends to get coffee or go to the movies. Like, don't make it about need. Okay, God will provide for you all those areas, but you make it about vision and you make it about what you're actually doing. Okay, make it about big picture stuff, and even look at your ministry and what you're really doing. Okay, now one of the ways I do this, I'm just going to give you a couple of my things. I'm in communications, right? So what I practically do is website and phone calls and registrar and Salesforce and videos and all that stuff, right? So I say I oversee all that stuff. But I say, you know what I really do is I call people into missions. I call people into Great Commission involvement. Okay, so you've got to know what is your big picture. What is your big picture season you're going into? What's the main passions, ministries that God's put on your heart? Because for you, that might be, so what I'm really doing is if you work in U Street or even if you're on a team on Saturday, then what we really do in U Street is we transform the emerging generation for Jesus. We reach the city, the sphere of family through young people for God. Okay, that's what U Street is. That's the main one-liners. What are your one-liners in ministry, okay? Don't talk about, oh, on Thursday we meet at 9:30 for about 20 minutes, and then we talk about going to a skate park, and then we talk, share, it's about story, it's about vision, it's about faith, okay? Okay, so let me summarize a few things here. Now, I don't have the printout, but I do have this. So this is one of the things I use. This is Ashley and I's, we have a flip book because we might not always have our computer with us, so I have each page printed out, and then we go through flip book. So this is if the person didn't know anything about YWAM. I would say Hey, well, it's awesome catching up. Thanks for being willing to chat about this stuff. And I just want to share a little bit more about what YOM is and kind of how it got started and what's it about. So reference this, but don't read off of it without engaging with the person, because you kind of know, you made it, you kind of know a bit what it's about. Yeah, so I don't know if you knew this, but Youth with a Mission basically is interdenominational, international Christian missions movement. We have about 20,000 full-time volunteers. It started in 1960, and the basic values, core things, are to know God and make God known. So it's intimacy with God and Great Commission. Okay? And I don't know if you knew this, but it started in 1960. It's been around over 50 years now, and our original founder, Warren Cunningham, he's in his 70s now. He, I don't know if you guys can see this, sorry. I'll kind of do it this way so you guys can see what it looks like. I don't do too much text. Some of that. Is that even working? Kind of. Is that better? Something like that. Sorry. But I sent this to Tina in an attachment, so you have. Okay, you already have it.
Yeah, we got it. Yep.
You got it. So you can look at it on your own page. Okay, so it started over 50 years ago when a guy was in the Caribbean on a mission trip. Lauren was there, and he saw this map come to life, and it was waves of young people crashing over the continents, taking Jesus into the world. And he felt God lead him into direct a movement, and it's really changed, because before mission was, you had to training, but he's empowered young people to be missionaries. It's been incredible to have a go and actually be able to tell people about Jesus and be a part of the Great Commission. So yeah, it's been incredibly successful. We have close to, since these days are a little bit old, but yeah, just even in 2007, we had hundreds of bases around the world. Outreach is happening all the time, and over 18 to 20,000 full-time staff. So it's been incredible to see the fruit of the mission. Yeah, so there's three main branches of focus in YWAM. It's training, evangelism, and mercy ministry. So all of what they do, they kind of go through three different areas of focus, and different bases will emphasize different components. So for example, YWAM Ukraine, as they prayed and heard God about what to do early on, they might feel the focus on orphans or that type of ministry, where in YWAM Mozambique, they might work with AIDS victims. Where in YWAM Newcastle, when our leaders took out in 1992, when the base was pioneered, they felt to really emphasize young people and to really reach out to that sphere. And we've branched out beyond that since then. And that's been one of our core strengths. So it's training, evangelism, and mercy ministries. So evangelism, we go into different outreaches and cross-cultural settings with outreach. Basically, how can we minister to these people? How can we get alongside them? So in Thailand, I was teaching English. In Indonesia, I was working in slums and doing some feeding programs and ministries and working with churches there. And it's just basically looking at how can we be Jesus' hands and feet. In training, you can actually get a degree with YWAM. So it's always about how can we empower the Holy Spirit to have spirit-led Christians that are yielded to God in whatever sphere God calls them. So for some of that, like myself and Ashley, we're still in YWAM and full-time missions. But for others, well, our heart is not to recruit people to YWAM, but to say, hey, here's how to hear the voice of God, trust Him with your future. And for some, and do what He says. For some, He leads them back to business and to go to university and to work in the church. And for others, He leads them to stay in YWAM. And that's how He's led us. And so we have whole training things that people can be a part of. And in Mercy Ministries, it's basically the two-handed gospel. God cares about your eternity, but God also cares. We want to look at how can we meet your practical needs in healthcare and in hygiene and food services and mercy. So we have ships that are working in the PNG in the Pacific, that meet practical needs, do care and eye surgeries and all these different practical things to say, hey, we love you, we care about your needs, and Jesus does too, and this is why we're doing that. Okay, so in YWAM Newcastle, like I said, our emphasis is young people. We've been around for over 20 years now. We have over 70 staff, and we're continuing to grow. Actually, we should probably update some of these stats. Yeah, it's been awesome to see what God's been doing with us and how He's been leading us in this area. And one of our main things that we do every Saturday is Youth Street. So it's engaging the city in subcultures. So if youth are into skateboarding and surfing and swimming and sports, we have teams around that. Every Saturday we get people gathered into our warehouse in Mayfield, and we send out teams to surf to different beaches, skate to different skate parks, all the way through. So it's been incredible to see just what God's been doing through that. And it's, we've still been growing, and we have our ministry center now with occupancy down in Mayfield. We've got going. Awesome. I serve on the whatever team you serve on, and tell a story. You know, I remember one time I was at the skate park and this happened. It was awesome to see just what God did through that. Okay, share a story, whatever. Okay, now then we transition. So, oh, sorry, one thing I don't have here. Before this step, you share about what you do. Okay, so we went from that, now we're on me. So share about, and what I'm doing in Wyoming, Newcastle, I've prayed about it and come back on staff for at least the next 2 years. And as I've prayed, I've helped to work in the training department. So I'm going to be staffing ETSs, and I'm going to be staffing this October's Compassion ETS, or whatever ETS you're staffing, or whatever you're doing in ministry. And so I'm going to be leading one-on-ones with all the different students from around the world, and leading small groups, and helping out with evangelists, and topics with speakers every week. And I'm really going to be discipling the next, this generation of young adults into deep relationship with God. It's going to be awesome. I can't wait to go on outreach with this year. I honestly don't know how much longer I'm going to be in YWAM Newcastle, but I know I'm here for now, and that's why I'm just wanting to not just get by, but really be planted in the call of God in this area. Okay? So I don't know if you knew this, but actually nobody in YWAM gets paid. We're all full-time missionaries and all full-time volunteers, and one of our values is to practice dependency on God for finances. And so we often see people partner with us through friends, family, churches, and come on board for different needs that we have, month-to-month partnership and different prayer points. Yeah, so it's kind of been a transition for me. You know, I grew up having a job and credit cards and stuff, but as I've really let God be a part of my life, and behind me, it's been awesome. And I can't wait to see what God continues to do in the future. So part of what I'm asking so far is about financial partnership. And a partner is somebody who is willing to pray for us, is willing to give financially. It's somebody that we can be accountable to, that we can share. This is how we're engaging, and we can be accountable in using some of their resources to continue to do full-time ministry. So really, you know, I give the time, you give the finances, and together we make a difference. I know you guys have full-time areas of focuses, but we're all on the same team, and essentially I may be on the outreach trip or on the skate park on Saturdays, but in the spirit, when you partner with me, you're right there next to me, being part of that process of seeing that harvest come in. So it's together we're making a difference in the Great Commission. Okay, so as up to this point, Ashley and I have this much money committed, and right now we're raising money for the next little bit of getting regular, monthly, consistent budget for groceries, and of course more expensive like annual health insurance and visa and some of our trips home. So where every time we have to come up, we're not having to do a specific campaign over that, but we have a regular, we can set aside in savings and budget each month. That's what we're up to, and that's a bit where we're spending. What I'm asking is if you'd be willing to pray and consider about being a part of our financial partnership team, if that's something you'd be willing to consider. And at this point, I have a response card. It's going to be in that attachment on the email. Okay, so you'll see my response card. All that stuff is editable, so you can use these, put your own photos in, and that response card will show you what I give to them. So at this point, I say, well, what I do is is that something, and then I say this question. So what I'm asking is if you'd be willing to pray and consider about being one of our financial partners in prayer and in finances. Is that something you're willing to do? Most of the time, yeah, we'll pray about it. Okay? Cool. Well, what I'll do is I'll leave this with you, and I give them a response card, and it has the little amounts on it. Don't assume what somebody's going to give, okay? And I'll maybe finish up with that in a second. But so I have a couple brackets on there. It says a monthly amount of 20, 40, 68. And then one of the other categories is a gift at this time of 500 or 1,000. It's very clear, and I've gotten advice on that, so use that as a template. It's a very good response card, the words, all that stuff. Okay. And then what I say is, what I'll do is I'll leave this with you, and what I'll do is I'll call you, what's today, Friday or Saturday? Okay, why don't I give you a couple days, and I'll call you next Wednesday or so to see what you and Betty have decided. Is that okay? Yeah, no worries, great. And just to let you know, while all amounts help, and while everything's beneficial and stuff, and every little bit helps, we're really in a season of developing our monthly partners. And so if it's possible for you guys as you're looking at this to consider regular, smaller amounts that are achievable, that really helps Ashley and I get into a consistency and regular budget that we can plan for, know what's coming in each month. So but anything helps, but just something to consider as well. Thanks so much for talking with us, guys. It was awesome hanging out tonight, and looking forward to chatting with you next Wednesday. Okay. Boom. in a nutshell. Be very deliberate about mentioning, I'll leave it with you, and I'll call you next Wednesday. So that way they know that they have X amount of days to decide and that you're going to follow up with them and you can give them details. Okay? Now, I just modeled all that for you. Now, part of that, it seems pretty doable. As you start doing it, you might find that some of your transitions are a bit clunky as you find your words and as you find what helps and what your big one-liners are. But practice, and it's going to help you, okay? Work in your transitions, use visuals. You have some there. You might have a video you want to make. The video can be helpful, but it may not be something you want to use in person if it's just about you speaking, because you can share that person if you're already in person, right? So if it's a video, maybe do one from YWAM Newcastle, or you can use one of ours online. We have a ton. We're actually pretty good at content, so you can use one of our videos if you want to give a bit more of a glimpse of Youth Street. Like the Youth Street promo video is only a minute long. That's pretty visual and dynamic, and that's pretty upbeat that Scott's done. Or you can show something else from YWAM Newcastle, okay? Get to the point, emphasize vision and faith in partnership. So partnering with me, okay? I want to know if you partner with me. So did you guys see what I did on how I pushed monthly partnership? How I talked to them about financial partnership, not just for and all that stuff? Okay? Now on the follow-up call, I'll give you a quick modeling of it. What I do is I call on Wednesday. I'll say, hey, it was great chatting to you on Saturday about just catching up and things, how things are going with you guys, things are going with the job and everything. Yeah, I just wanted to follow up from our conversation about partnership and ministry and seeing if you and Betty had a chance to discuss and pray about it and see what you've decided. Yeah, great. Yeah, we've talked about it, and oh man, these moments are awesome. I remember talking to a couple, and I knew that they were partnered with other individuals in ministry, so I'm thinking to myself, okay, maybe we'll get $20 a month here. And I didn't know what to expect, but I was kind of thinking that side. And I talked to him and said, hey, yeah, seeing if you had a chance for you and Betty to pray about it and see what you guys had decided. Yeah, we chatted about it, and we'd like to give $100 a month. Like, okay, like, wow. It's just, it's super encouraging, okay? The other thing that's super encouraging, the longer you're here and as you sow into people, when they start approaching you about financial partnership, that's awesome. I've had probably 3 partners, monthly partners, approach us about wanting to partner with us. It's awesome. And it will happen as you engage in the city, engage in the call of God, and sow into people. It will happen. Water relationships, okay? Now, one other thing that becomes kind of popular for some reason, our generation, or our way that missionaries tend to do this, we tend to get into these campaigns that are, all I need is $2,000. So if all I need is 200 people to give $10 each. I need 200 people to give $10 each, and then I'll have my $2,000 from outreach. Okay. I have a few thoughts on this. That is a lot of work for very little return. What I'm saying is, do what God's leading you to do. But that's a very efficient thing, but not very effective. Because if you talk to 4 people, each of those could get $500. But what you're doing is you're limiting and assuming the individual's capacity. Somebody that's able to give $500, remember, people are going to do what you ask them to do. You're asking for $10 rather than 10 people that are giving $200. But let them determine what they want to do. You're going to approach 5 people, and one of those might give you $1,000. Okay? Don't put a limit on that, and that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work on your part for a lot of follow-up. Lots of follow-up. Oh my gosh. And the other thing is, I wouldn't encourage you to do like X amount of people for X amount of dollars. Say if you do, I'm trying to get $1,000 a month, so I need 100 people to partner with me for 10. It's just $10 a month. It's just 2 cups of coffee. Yes, but if you're trying to get 100 people to partner with you $10 a month, that's pocket change. That's not. They're not really a partner. They're just kind of like giving you a bit of a what's in their pocket change. That's not bad. But say if you get some breakthrough seeing that. What if 20 of those people forget next month to give you $10? Then you've got to call and follow up with 20 people about $10. You sound like it makes it sound like a collection agency. Hey, give me my $10. Do what God's telling you to do, but let people determine what they want to give.
Yeah.
Okay? Because some people are going to surprise you. And it's not the wealthy who give, the generous who give. Okay? It's not the wealthy who give, it's the generous who give. So even somebody, I mean, I have people that don't feel like they have a lot of, in the natural, and even probably from talking with them, they probably don't feel like they have a lot of capacity, but they still give me $20 a month. And that's awesome. I don't have a partner that's less than $20 a month, and most of mine are $50, $100, or more. So don't short sell yourself, like, and just do it. It's one partner at a time, guys. One partner at a time. It may feel like, okay, I've got to raise $500 a month. That may seem overwhelming, or I've got to raise $600, or whatever your goal is. Budget. It's one partner at a time, one relationship at a time, and it's totally doable. One thing at a time as God's leading you. Engage with God. He will give you. Sometimes, as I ask God what He's saying about finances, He's going to give you either something in principle that He's encouraging you. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. I'm with you. Be strong and courageous. That's principle. Other times, He's going to give you practical tactics. I want you to write an update, okay? I want you to share about news or share about ministry, because ministry and communication is about relationship, yeah? You're sowing into communication. So that, and what that does, newsletters, website updates, communication emails, what that's doing is watering the relationship. So that when you actually need finances or when you're in a place of need, it's a very small step to reap that harvest. If you never communicate until you need money, what does that say? If you only communicate money, what does that say? Okay? So if you do it normal over time, then occasionally you only make it about finances, then it's way easier to receive. People will be more quickly on board. So as far as a general guideline on how often to communicate, I would say instead of trying to make novels every 3 months, make short 2 to 3 paragraph emails once a month. It's so much more achievable. It's not that much work. It just keeps people in touch. It lets you know that you're staying in touch and up to date. Do a mail merger program. MailChimp is great. That's what we use because you can do Dear Amelia, Dear Ellie, Dear Yuri, okay? It's not the be-all and end-all, but it does kind of give a little bit of relational. And people know now in our digital age that it's probably mail merged, but their name catches their attention more than, hey, everybody. Okay. It's very useful. Mail merge. You mail merge your database into MailChimp, and then you can do it in a setting which will say Dear First Name. And it'll pick out the first name of each contact, and then it'll say Dear Ellie, Dear Tina.
We have a copy and paste.
You can do that. Yes. Hey guys, I'm super passionate about this area. If you have questions or want more further coaching or want to practice, I know I'm kind of giving you a shotgun approach, but this stuff is so doable. If you have more questions about principle, about what I got to say about this in the Bible, or what I had somebody once tell me, I approached him about finances. This was years ago, and he said, well, is it because of your visa you can't get a job, or because Paul made tents in the Bible, and he used that response, and I was like, okay, so that can be kind of a misunderstanding at times, or how did Jesus get his money, or whatever questions you have. Let's talk principle. Let's talk barriers that keep you from, what are the hindrances to faith and finances, and those are usually hard things. If you don't make it about the heart, every practical in the world, you're still going to, okay. It's got to be about the heart. It's got to be about being soft to God, aligning Him with you, and then walking in obedience. Okay? And that's where the real breakthrough is going to come. Sometimes He's going to tell you He wants you to talk to these 2 people. Other times He's going to tell you, I don't want you to share with anybody. I don't want you to just trust me for this supernaturally. He's done it with me, okay? What's God saying? And don't assume. Remember, do what God's saying, because if you know Tom Hallis, I'll finish up with this story and pray for you. Tom Hallis, in the late 80s, early 90s, God was leading him and his wife to raise money for a house in Canberra. And he had a list of like 300 people, 300 names, and God told him to approach 4 families on that list. And each of those families had, and he approached each of those 4 families, and each of those families that he approached gave him $10,000 each per house. Now, he did one other thing with that. He approached one other family on that list that God didn't tell him to, but that in the natural was wealthy and had capacity. He approached that one other couple, and not only were they offended and they didn't do it, but they never given it since. But that was his own idea. Okay, and so what I'm saying is, do what God's saying. Okay, our good ideas and what we perceive in the natural is not what God sees. And even if in the natural, if a person doesn't have capacity, I have a family that they're YWAM kids, and they have 4 children, and they partner with us $100 a month. Like, I cannot tell you, don't limit somebody by what you see in the natural. Okay. Let people surprise you, and God's going to surprise you too. So don't make it too hard for yourself by doing campaigns of $5 each or a cup of coffee a month or something like that. That seems to be a trend in season that I just haven't seen a lot of fruit out of. It takes a lot of work for a little fruit. It's very efficient, but not very effective. So I push effectiveness and God ideas rather than good ideas. If God's letting you to do that. Okay? But if he's just giving you people and principle, do the most relational, most effective thing. Okay? Do direct communication. You guys are going to do this. You guys are going to smash it. It's going to be awesome. Okay? The other thing is, don't. I'm still here, and I've been here 8 years now. Everybody I've talked to on staff, in my experience in Wyoming, only thought they were going to be here for their years. So what does that tell you? I'm not saying you're going to be here for 8 years. But what I am saying is we tend to think in short bursts of time where we can kind of think, we have had some staff over the years come on and they just work back home. Don't really want to do finances this way and monthly partners, so they just work. And they have $3,000 saved up, and that's enough for their first year and a half on staff, and they're only committed for 2 years, so they don't have to worry about it. Or they worked enough and they have 2 years worth of staff fees on their bank account. They don't have to do it. That's one way to go. But if you do it that way, that's going to get you by for a time, but that eventually has an end. What if God, in obedience, tells you to stay longer? Not saying it will, but it's definitely happened. Okay? So what I'm saying is, do both. Save back home, steward your money, finances back home, that's great. But do both, because God might want you to be generous to others. Surprise you with what He's wanting you to do. And are you here until God says? Are you here until God says to leave, or are you leaving unless God says to stay? Difference in those two things. The difference in the heart position. Are you here until God says otherwise, because you know He's told you to be here, or are you leaving unless God says stay? Yeah, I'll leave that with you. But guys, you've been awesome. I think I've enjoyed connecting with you guys online. Looking forward to your visa breakthrough and seeing you in a short amount of time in Jesus' name. And can't wait for you guys. October's going awesome. It's been great working with Duke. She just posted an article about the quarter, and we're working closely together. And if you guys want to be aware, what we're believing for and praying for is 60 students. Okay, so we're believing and praying for 60 over the quarter, not just Compassionate Trailblazers. So that would be a real key thing. We're fasting. If you want to, even while you're waiting on visa, we're fasting and praying on Thursdays over lunch as a student communication and creative team. So communications is a surrogate mother. So we are the nurturer of growth, and then we pass the baby to training at the start of the quarter. But that's one of the ways that we nurture and let the baby grow is fasting and praying and pressing into the Spirit on Thursdays. And then we also do different things and praise the team and stuff like that. So you're welcome to join us if you're staffing. If not, but you just probably know where the community is pushing in for, okay? So 60.
How many do you have?
Moving on the board between enrolled and active accepted, not dormant, but active accepted. We are pushing, I got 11 trailblazers, 16, and then 12, 45. We have 33 enrolled on Compassion, 12 active accepted that are still moving and communicating, and then 11 enrolled on Trailblazers, and 5 that are active, accepting, and communicating. So all of those that are moving is 61. But I know I've done this long enough to know trends. What you generally will find is in about 2 to 3 weeks' time, the decision becomes real, and people will start, oh, I don't have enough money, I need to, or something else has come up, or they tend to start aborting. So you got to pray against the abortive spirit. And you'll probably see a swing of about 5 to 10 leading up right in the week of the quarter. So that's why when we pray and fight in the spirit, we're not just looking at data. Because if we did nothing and just looked at data, we'd probably receive in the 40s. But if we fight and we pray, we'll probably receive in the 50s, 55 to 60 range. And so we're believing for 60.
Will this be the biggest
July was the largest training quarter in history, but that's combining second-level schools and DTS. At this moment, July was 44 DTS students. January this year was 50. So the 50 largest DTS training was January. If we get this result in October, it could be both the largest DTS quarter and largest training quarter. But we're consistently breaking records. God's just, releases
so good
past year. So it's been good. I'm going to pray for you guys, and have a great afternoon or evening or wherever time zone you're in. Thank you, Lord, for the privilege of faith and finances. God, thank you that you use this practical area to address issues of the heart, and you keep us depending on you and walking with you, and that we don't get too far away, Lord. So thank you that we have a privilege of doing this, and it actually involves more people in the Great Commission, and it keeps us relational, it keeps us sowing into people, and it's just a great way that you've designed YWAM. So thank you for this. I just pray for each one here, and that benefiting from this content this morning, that you would just, Holy Spirit, would you just sift through the notes, sift through the content, and just give them the takeaway that they need. The first steps of starting with this, and I'd say generally it's starting with you, and just say, Lord, how should I start? Where should I start? And that's usually the hard thing. And then as we do that, we engage in the tactics, and we engage in relationship and get the right communication, relational processes down, that comes after engaging with you. So Lord, I just thank you that each one here, I totally believe it's possible, and as they engage with you, you're going to see breakthrough. It's so simple. And I just pray that this wouldn't become an area of fear or crippling or intimidation or discouragement, but it'd be an area of peace and victory and relationship and fruitfulness, and it would be just a great source of testimony of your provision in the future. In Jesus' name. Amen.
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 Thank you very much.
Good.
Yeah.
Community that you feel, and so am I, and so are a lot of staff, actually, so please ask questions. And I know we'll have lots of them.
Yeah. I've shared just some brief thoughts on social media, but if you have more questions on digital stuff, Daniel is a good one to ask. I think we're mostly on the same page with some of this stuff, but he probably might emphasize some more specific tactics or thoughts around social media and website than I do. But that's part of our own preferences and stuff like that. Neither are wrong. But
what was that thing you said at the end? Are you here until God says otherwise? Or...
Are you here until God says, I'm sorry, are you here until God says otherwise, or are you leaving unless God says to stay? It has to do with our expectations and planning. So it's like, okay, God's called me to YWAM, so that's a 2-year commitment, but after that I'm going to do X, Y, Z. God tends to lead us in seasons, and even when I first came back on YWAM, God told me to do an SOE, and that was 6 months. So I did that, and towards the end of that I said, okay, God, what should I do next? And he said, I want you to staff in January 08 DTS. I did that, and after that I said, okay, God, what should I do next? And it was always a relaxed confidence in the heart of God that is for me, and it has my best in mind. And if, people ask me at times, how are you going to stay in Australia? And I say, I don't really know, but I say I get less concerned about where I am and what I'm doing and more concerned about who sent me there. And I know for now, God's never spoken to me about leaving YWAM Newcastle. And so I'm here until God says otherwise. And some of that, there's healthy commitments around some roles. So my role in sense a 2-year commitment or more, or 2 years out, or whatever it is. So I know that saying yes, that as God leads me to, it has a specific commitment attached to it. But I say, so whether that's 2 years or 10 years or 20 years at YWAM Newcastle, I trust God. God's with me. God's knows where He wants to use me, and for others and for myself. And so that's the difference, because out of our own plans or desires, and they're not always wrong, because even YWAM by nature is it's a bridge, and so the average commitment in YWAM is 2 years, I think. But let it be God who determines that, not our own, what we're okay with, not our missions phase, or this is my missions phase while I'm a young adult before I start my real career, my real life, or my real job, or my real marriage and family. Like, that's crap. And let God lead you, not your own preferences or what your family's okay with. You know, even your family can be giving you pressure, like, okay, you can do this for 2 years, but after this you have to do X, Y, Z. Well, you know, you can honor and affirm them while still being obedient to God. And that's the story as well.
That's good.
That's what are you leaving? Are you here because until lunch? Otherwise, or are you leaving because?
Oh, sorry. Unless God says to stay. So are you here until God says otherwise, or are you leaving unless God says to stay? Because one, you've already made up your mind in your heart. One, you're secure and at rest and planted, and God has a bit more. You're not as there's a bit extra position of resistance on the other one. God has to swing you a long way if your heart's already out the door and making plans for 2 years from now. God has to swing you a bit because your expectations are already set, versus you're at rest and at peace and just comfortable with being obedient in the now and knowing that God's let you be here. And He can extend that or reduce that based on a relaxed heart versus a determined heart that's already with the Lord. That's where it gets into is being at rest. Okay.
Thanks, Robbie.
Be blessed.
Hey guys. Good job. This is our last lecture. So well done, everybody.
Thank you very much, Tina.
I hope that you enjoyed your time. Hope that you got a lot out of it online as well.
Yeah.
Thanks for taking care of all the details.
Yeah.
If you have any questions beyond this, though, please ask. I think the Facebook thing's so nice because it's all, everyone's connected to it. But I sent pictures and stuff. Did you guys get that?
Yep.
Yes, you can get back here. It's our lunchtime, and I was supposed to have a meeting at 12, and that's definitely not happening. So, yes, but if you have questions, please email. Also, please do your encouragements that we worked on. You've got to do those. Or else the other person...
I sent it through to Morgan already.
Okay, so I just need to remind everyone of that. But also, otherwise, have a great day at Easter, you guys. Thank you. Have a great week, you guys.
Yeah. Have
Tomorrow
fun.
morning, 5:30 a.m.
Are you packed?
Sort of. So, yeah. It's gonna be a day. Love you guys.
Love you. Bye, Tina.
And I told some of you girls, but for when you do get back, because I'll be gone for 3 weeks, there is little packs for you guys on my desk, and I'll tell Dukes about it. But there's like papers and those clips, and then your 2 books that you can grab. So I'll just have it on my desk for you guys.
All right. Sweet.
Thank you.
Bye. Yeah. Love you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
I still need a U Street t-shirt, I guess.